Okay, there are three things, three power sources: faith, hope, and love. These three. And we know and have heard the greatest of these is love, but we're going to talk about faith. What is faith? This is just going to be one aspect of it, but this is really good. Romans 1:16. Give you a little pause to get there if you're using your phone or your laptop like I am, or your page after page Bible, whatever. Romans 1:16. Now this is the Apostle Paul writing this letter to the Romans, whatever that means. I don't know if he was in Rome or headed to Rome. I don't know. I'm not that kind of guy. But the English of Romans 1:16 and 17, we're just going to read. Now this is King James. I read the King James, but I skip the these and thous. You know, I just kind of you and yours, just kind of roll through those. Here he is. For I am not ashamed of the gospel of Christ, for it is the power of God unto salvation to every one that believes, to the Jew first, and also to the Greek. For therein is the righteousness of God revealed, from faith to faith, as it is written, the just shall live by faith. What is faith? Let's back up a little bit. The very first verse, for I am not ashamed of the gospel of Christ. Now, that term that was translated gospel literally is translated. A much better translation is well message. And of course, Christ is anointed, or in Hebrew, the Messiah, the Moshiach. For I am not ashamed of the well message of Mashiach, the Messiah. For it is the well message of the Messiah. It is the force or the power of Big Daddy. That would be Yod He Vav He, Yahovah. It is the force of Big Daddy unto salvation to everyone that believes. Believe, remember that. It's a very important part of faith and what faith is. To the Jew first and then to the Greek. I'm not Greek, but he didn't leave me out, okay? The next verse, for therein, for in there, in the well message of the Messiah, the well message of the kingdom that the Messiah taught to us, he heard what Big Daddy said, and he re-said what he heard Big Daddy say. He said, I only say what I hear the Father say. So the well message of the Messiah is the well message that came from the heart of our Father. The Father said it, the Messiah, the King, re-said it, and therein, in that well message is the righteousness, the rightness of Yahovah, or Elohim. Yahovah, Big Daddy's name. Elohim is the Hebrew word that it's plural. When you see God in the Old Testament, that was the word Elohim. Elohim is plural. The very first word of the Bible, in the beginning. Elohim created. It's plural, and yet it's treated as singular. Interesting. It's plural, but it's one. It's more than one, but it's one. Elohim. For in there, the well message of the Messiah is the rightness of Elohim, the Father, the Son, the Spirit. Three, yet one. For in there, in the well message of the kingdom, in the well message of the Messiah, is the rightness of Elohim revealed from faith to faith. As it is written, the just shall live by faith. The literal translation is, the just one shall be living out of faith. Now, let's talk about faith. What is faith? When Big Daddy communicates something to you and you hear it, you have the opportunity to then believe it. You can believe it or not believe it. He can speak through this. He can speak through a bird flapping its wings. Big Daddy is not limited to the ability to speak through anything or anyone he put around you. He can speak. But when we seek to know his heart, when we seek to sit with him, especially first thing in the day, the first fruits of the day, especially getting alone with him, go into the storehouse, close the door, and sit alone with him. Our Father who is in heaven, your name, wow, your name, oh, your name, your kingdom come, your will be being done here in this earth, just like it is there. Give us this day our daily bread. See, hidden in the bread is the actuality of faith. When we go in to sit with him, just be alone with him. No list, no agenda, just be alone with him, just as I've said before, just to go in there and adore being adored. Adore them as they adore you. And when you hear with clarity in your heart what the Father's saying, he may say, hey, go to Romans 1:16. I'm gonna give you something to chew on. And then when it's over, he said, hey, I want you to let other people chew on this too. So here we are. When we choose to sit with him, to hear his voice, to understand his wisdom, as his little child, lest you humble yourself like a little child, you can't get in there. But when we choose to humble ourselves as little children and go in to sit with them, to hear him, to hear our Father speak clearly, with clarity to our hearts, we then have the opportunity to believe what we just heard. You don't have to believe it, but if he says it and you hear it, those that have ears to hear what the Spirit is saying to the called out ones, that would be us. I don't know if you can hear, but I had a couple of dogs out running and I just let them in. One of them's kind of tired. So if you choose to sit with them, to be tutored by them, you don't have to go to a church to be fed once a week. Guys, give us this day our daily bread. and forgive us as we forgive others. So when you go in there and Daddy speaks to you and you know you've heard from him and you choose to believe what you have now heard, it becomes faith. Now, you have to be his little child to have access to him. You have to humble yourself like a little child to go in there. You have to sit with them, adore them, be adored by them, be an eager little bird. Daddy, feed me, feed me, feed me. Give me this day my daily bread, Daddy. I want daily bread. I want to hear from you, Daddy. I want to know you. I want to understand your wisdom. Daddy, what are we eating this morning, Daddy? No, I'm not ashamed. And when he speaks to you and you believe what you have just heard, it becomes faith. And faith is one of the three forces that are available to us. Faith, hope, love. Now, faith is knowing. Because you now know what you heard. You put yourself in position to hear, you heard, you believed, and now it became faith. So faith is now something you know. Faith is knowing. Knowing what you heard and believed. So faith, whenever you see faith, just put the word knowing in there. Faith is knowing. Okay, you got it? Now let's move forward. For in the well message of the Messiah, the well message of the kingdom, which he said shall be publicly proclaimed in all the earth before the time of his return. Did you hear that? For in the well message of the Messiah, is the rightness of Elohim. Hidden in the well message are the right ways of our Father. Seek first. Seek first the kingdom of our Father and his right ways. Unto you is given to know the mysteries of the kingdom. The mysteries of the kingdom include the right ways of Big Daddy. Yeshua didn't even know everything. He was asked a question one time and he said, I don't know. Only Big Daddy knows the answer to that. Angels don't know. I don't know. Nobody knows. Some things Big Daddy holds to himself for whatever reason. But we can know his right ways through this faith, which is knowing. Again, let's back up. How do you know? You know because you believed. You believed what? You believed what you heard. You heard why? How did you hear? Because you got yourself in position to be his little child and to go up in there and to sit with him. Without faith, without knowing, without humbling yourself as a little child, going in there to sit with Father, going in there to hear. And when you hear, you believe. You now, know, which is faith. Without faith, without knowing, without believing what you heard, being in position to hear from Big Daddy, without knowing, it is impossible to please him. You're going to see faith different from now on. Whenever you read your book, you see faith. Oh, wow, that means knowing. For in there, or therein, is the rightness of Elohim, the Father, the Son, the Spirit, revealed. See, the rightness of Big Daddy is revealed in these knowings. The rightness of Big Daddy revealed from knowing to knowing, from faith to faith. This morning, if you positioned yourself to be adored by them and adore them and just sit there as their little child, you heard and you believed and you now know. Tomorrow, guess what? Today is faith, knowing. Tomorrow is a whole nother knowing. Knowing after knowing after knowing after knowing after bread after daily bread. That's how it works. Wow. You ready for this? Then he quotes a scripture from Habakkuk. Wow. Sometimes you just have to Selah. Be still. As it is written, the just shall be living out of faith. The just out of knowing and knowing and knowing and daily knowing and daily knowing gets to enjoy living. That Hebrew word is chai. Chai is a huge word. It's translated life. But you could explore chai for 1,000,000 years and just barely scratch the surface of the fullness of that word. The just one shall be living out of knowing what they heard. Faith. And what's a just one? Are you a just one? Very recently, Daddy explained justice to me, or explained a little teeny tiny iota of what justice is and what it means. I'll give it to you quickly. He said, justice was, before Satan became Satan, when he was a glorious, magnificent, wow, created angel, before he ever turned to set up his own kingdom, and 1/3 of all the angels followed him to set up this kingdom thing, before any of that happened, everything was just. Everything was pure. Everything was Kodesh, or holy. Everything was perfect. But Daddy knew that he didn't create robots. All angels always had access to do whatever they desired. They just desired to adore Big Daddy. Until one day. And then when the adversary became the adversary and the angels that followed him, things became unjust. And yet, before that ever happened, before Daddy ever even created him, he said in the Old Testament, in the scriptures, I created the waster to destroy. I asked him one time, I said, Daddy, you created the waster to destroy. Destroy what? He said, destruction. Oh. 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 So justice was before time. And then all of a sudden, the adversary turned into the adversary. Daddy knew what was going to happen. He knew they were going to make man in their own image after their likeness, which probably made the unjust ones pretty mad because they were just angels. Daddy said, let us make man in our own image after our likeness, look like us, act like us, think like us, talk like us. Let us do that. Wow. This will be the epitome of creation. So as time has gone, Daddy already knew. He already knew. He knew every thought. He knew every cell division. He knew every decision that every one of us were going to make. He knew everything before it was. It's the foreknowledge of our Father. He knew. And when all is said and all is done, and we can get my hand right, and we get right here to the last moments when the sheep are gathered on their right and the goats are gathered on their left, and the separation of both camps is done, justice will be again. And it'll even be better than it was before. I don't know why I just said that. Fresh bread. The just. So if you're one of those that are going to be on the right hand, if you're one of the sheep, if you've been cleansed with the baptism of fire, everything in you that's not like them burned out of you, if you're one of those, you're just. You're already that woman. That's how Daddy can refer to us as righteous ones, holy ones. Wow. So you're just if you're one of those. And the just shall be obtaining high life from knowing and knowing and knowing and knowing, and day after day choosing to know, faith after faith after faith after faith. Wow. This is the bedrock of the well message of the kingdom. The well message of the kingdom is the message that makes all things well. It is the unveiling of the message that he has proclaimed since before time began, so that justice shall be again. Be well. And understand a little bit more about faith. It's knowing. Put yourself in a position to know things every day. Love you guys.